Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and we return to the Marvel series this time for something that makes no sense whatsoever. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. It is August of 1983, and Marvel prints a new story, right here, issue number 78, entitled Hoth Stuff. Now, bear in mind, this is already going to cause some problems for readers. As you'll see, if you were to pick up this and the other books of this era, in Star Wars Omnibus a long time ago, Volume 4, or if you have the individual issues, you may recall that at the end of the previous issue, right, Chantanus of the Stars, it said, next time, the Big Con, and yet, no, next time it's Hoth Stuff. It's a filler issue here, and that filler issue in this case is also by a different creative team than the one that has been now over the series and will be over the series for a little while. It is not Ron Friends doing the art, with Mary Jo Duffy doing the writing. This is David Michelinie doing the writing, the man who had been the lead writer on the series, and Luke McDowell doing the pencils, whereas Bob Layton was also helping with the inks and helping along with some of the plot. And this kind of comes out of nowhere at this point, because the last we saw was Luke and Leia going off on one mission with Pliff to go look for leads on Tay Vanis's information, and Lando and Chewbacca and the droids went off in another direction, only now we have our characters back together again, which doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So, we have Luke and Leia, and a new pilot named Lieutenant Barlin Hightower, who are aboard a Y-Wing, who are looking for Wedge Antilles. Wedge hasn't shown up in the Marvel series since the Battle of Hoth, since The Empire Strikes Back, and this tries to account for why he's been gone. Where has he been all this time? And it does it in a really screwed up sort of way. Our characters find this rebel transport that apparently had left Hoth, but had somehow not made it back to the rest of the fleet. They want answers. What is going on? They get aboard and find a recording left by Wedge Antilles that tells a very unusual tale of what happened to Wedge after the Battle of Hoth. Basically, the idea here is that Wedge was flying with Wes Jansen, right, in their snowspeeder, and as they tried to leave in a Y-Wing, they got shot down. And together, right, Jansen is injured, Wedge is having to take care of him. Together, they get inside the head of the AT-AT that Luke destroyed with the proton grenade, where it kind of blew up on the inside and then collapsed down. So they stayed in there for a little while. They wound up making their way back inside the old Rebel base to one of the ion cannon emplacements so that they could basically hole up in a place with at least some basic supplies around. They wind up having to hunt for food and such. They have to stay clear of any wampas that are going around killing the Tauntauns and whatnot, until finally we get to a point where they realize that there are TIE fighters in orbit that if you don't know the way around them or through them, there's no way getting off the planet. They'll spot you. You have to know how to get out, and if you send a transmission, they're going to catch you before anyone else does, and you'll still wind up being killed. Speaking of being killed, we wind up finding that there is a group of scavengers led by, his name is Arns Grimraker here. Actually, where is he? Arns Grimraker, he is, yeah, up here in the corner. The guy up there that's got kind of the cybernetic eye thing going on, very much like a Score the Bounty Hunter here. Now, at this point, Wedge has been gone for a minute looking for supplies on the Tauntaun. He comes back inside. It has been months, and he finds Wes Jansen dead. Bear with me here. He finds Wes Jansen, who appears in the X-Wing novels and all over the modern EU, finds him dead. Okay. Wedge then manages to basically set a drone with blasters on it to start destroying some of the ships for the scavengers, and manages to get himself aboard one of the transports and lifts off of the planet while the scavengers are busy dealing with these, vehicles that he has set against them, that their own vehicles turned on their owners. He gets into space. It's following the coordinates that had already been programmed into it by the scavengers, makes it away from the TIE fighters, but he has changed the programming on their ship, so they go straight to the TIE fighters. They get destroyed. He has survived, but one of the shots messes up part of the engine system, the exterior ion link, and it looks like they are just going to drift in space, or he is just going to drift in space, which has buried Jansen back on Hoth. Fortunately, as Luke is hearing the story, he thinks that, oh no, Wedge has died. Turns out, no, he hasn't. while they're there, Wedge was actually outside going EVA to fix that exterior link. He realized that the scavengers got all the good parts. All he had to do was get to the parts and find a way to fix the ship, and he'd be okay. They just happened to find him before he was able to do that. So our heroes are reunited. Jansen is dead, but Wedge is back with the Rebel Alliance. Now, continuity-wise, obviously, this is a mess with what we see in modern day. Most of the Marvel series was originally at one point considered S canon, that is secondary canon. You have G level, which is George Lucas's definitive vision. You have C level, now in between you have T level television canon. But then you have C level, which is sort of the continuity canon. It's the official continuity stuff that begins really in 1991 and eventually works in a bunch of the older stuff. You have S canon, which is secondary. It's sort of up in the air. Maybe it's canon, maybe it's not. Just see if it's referenced in something else. Down to N canon, that's non-canon, or Infinities, apocryphal. It's not part of the continuity. So it's in this weird situation where the Marvel series had been between official continuity and the stuff that absolutely isn't. That meant that this story needed to be referenced in something else to be considered true. What winds up happening is they work it in and basically say that, yeah, Wedge did run across individuals who were scavengers on Hoth after the Battle of Hoth, but Jansen didn't die, of course, and that a lot of the story that is being told in this issue that seems so out of place, this is a recollection made by Wedge, for the most part, of false events. It's a story he tells to other trainees just to freak them out when they finally meet the real Wes Jansen, just kind of mess with their heads. Kind of a neat way of writing it off, but back then, surely people were sitting there going, wait, what? Moreover, the background of Wedge in here has nothing to do with the Wedge Antilles that we know anything about. It says that Wedge was Luke's boyhood friend on Tatooine who flew with him against the Death Star. That's Biggs Darklighter. They took Biggs' background and got it all mixed up and turned it into Wedge Antilles. Luke's oldest friend from back home. No, he's not. Wedge didn't have much background previously, but he certainly isn't Biggs, who did have background. What's the coincidence of two of his oldest friends flying with him against the Death Star, and yet one of them never saying anything about it? Doesn't make any sense. David Michelinie, who was so good at setting up long-running plot lines in this series, absolutely dropped the ball on the Wedge characterization and getting him confused with Biggs here. And then, of course, the Marvel series as a whole winds up seeing this pretty much knocked out, thanks to later continuity bringing back Wes Jansen. So, I'm sure you already know the answer to this. Marvel number 78, Hoth Stuff, is this an essential read? Oh, hell no. This is not only not an essential read, it's not even really part of the overall continuity anymore. This is an issue of the Marvel series that can and should be skipped at any cost unless you just want to see an alternate version of events that wound up being dumped from continuity early on in the EU game. With that negative note, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.